Hello and welcome back to Men with Issues. I am Zach Ciota, sitting alongside just Justin, because one of us writes one name, one of us writes both names.
I'm sorry I didn't put my last name.
You know what?
Forgive me.
It doesn't really matter, I don't think. In case you want to talk to us and talk about us at work tomorrow, Beaver, that's his last name, and you pronounce mine
That's right.
Ciota. So there's these two guys on the internet, man, they talk a lot about nothing.
That's right.
Man, how's it going, dude?
Going good. What's been going on with you? I feel like we ain't done this in like a month or something.
I know. It's like one show was put off because my wife was having super migraines, I guess, and then we come back. It does feel like it's been a while. I think the other show might have been, I don't know what date it was. It might have been before the inauguration. Not sure.
I think it was.
Probably
right
was.
along there close.
Man, I mean, a lot of stuff going on. Family's real busy. We have a lot of appointments. My wife was just telling me that Wednesday is going to be, I don't know, depending on how you look at it, busy, awful, or whatever. There's just a lot of stuff going on. We have like doctor's appointments, school stuff, and then my son's got a soccer game because they're finally starting their sports. And yeah. So we're in the quota for people who can watch, I guess.
Yeah, Anna's been sick. Pretty sure it's COVID, but she hasn't been tested. Yeah, she went to get tested Friday. Yeah, Friday, and was told at the door that they didn't accept our insurance, and it would be X amount of dollars, and she said no thanks. So she come back home, and today she actually feels way better. She's been up cleaning the house and kind of getting back to normal, but she's been sick for 3 or 4 days. She laid around in the bed.
Wow. So you really think it's coronavirus?
No smell, no taste. What else? Fever. I mean, all the telltale signs. So
Here's what's throwing me off right here. Is your camera reversed from where it was before?
Yeah. So I'll be looking this way now. If she comes in the room or something, she'll be over there.
That's what's throwing me off because I'm used to you looking one way when Anna comes into the conversation or you see her walk in the room, and now it's the opposite way. I was like, what's going on, man? Because your sweet bench back there.
I know, right?
That's great.
That's a chicken spoke bitch right there.
That is well beyond chicken spoke. That is well beyond. That's a good looking bench, and even got the now what sliding drawer toolbox is that? What brand is that?
Oh, that's just some little off-brand Task Force, whatever that is.
Oh, don't worry about it. I got a Task Force miter saw.
There you go.
And yes, it is an off-brand. It was, I think Lowe's sold it back in the day.
Yeah, it was free. I don't even remember where I got that thing.
Hey, if it was free,
I've
then
had it for a while.
No problem.
Yeah,
I like Task Force. It used to be like you go and look. I had this miter saw, and I've had it for like 15 years. And it's Task Force. It's a 10-inch miter saw. It's still going. I mean, it looks rough, but I mean that's a testament to the quality of Task Force.
Well, I think when it comes to a little toolbox like that, I'm not looking for. I mean, that's not in a service van or nothing like that. That's just like hand tools for around the house type deal. I don't need nothing fancy. It does the job. There's basic hand tools in that.
Well, you're not gonna get a Snap-on box or something like that.
No, I don't need all that.
No. Much ado about nothing. It's weird. It's like going to be like a tool show. I'm thinking of tool topics now. For some reason, I was thinking about Craftsman and how Craftsman wasn't the same as Craftsman was before.
Yeah.
I keep walking through the store. I mean,
if you need the name brand stuff, if you look real close.
Oh, man.
All the Milwaukee stuff's under there. Maybe I should put it up on the bench and then hide the Task Force box. Maybe that's what I should do.
Yeah. Watch out which thing you're showcasing, I guess. You're trying to win sponsorship from Task Force. I don't know if that's a possibility.
That's doubtful.
I like
that's
that.
Doubtful.
It's nice. You have a picture of you and your wife up there too on the wall, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
That's nice.
So, yeah, I just wanted something to be able to clean rifles and handguns and all that. I've got the bench up there and pegboard with some basic tools. There's some specialty tools for rifles and stuff up there. Ear Pro, some ammunition. There's different stuff up there, but it's a work in progress. It's not done yet.
You're going to have to sell that ammunition to buy more plywood?
Maybe. Good God.
Two inflated prices battling it out, man.
They're proud of wood right now.
Yeah, they really. That's what surprised. That's what we were talking about beforehand, because I had to buy. I'm remodeling my shop and trying to straighten it out because it's a huge mess right now, and so I bought a bunch of 2x4s and plywood. And plywood just, I had to downgrade to the thinnest OSB at the lumber yard because it was still $26 a sheet, and I needed several sheets of it. And I was like, man, this is insane.
Yeah, it's crazy. If you're trying to build anything right now, it's probably, could you imagine we're talking about, $100, $150, $200 worth of wood. We're talking about little small projects. Could you imagine building a house right now?
It must be. I don't know what they're doing. They must be building them cheap or something. I don't know what they're doing.
I don't know how they're doing it, but it'd be pricey right now, to say the least.
I bet. Here's what they do, I guess, because I had to do trim molding at my house and run quarter round, and I ran about 30 foot of it before I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. So I called somebody and said, man, can you run this quarter round throughout my house? It's like, yeah, sure. So I had to buy a bunch of quarter round, and I was like, man, well, this is adding up too, because I need so many pieces of it. And then, what's up, Steve? It's good to see that the chat is alive. That's nice.
That's right.
I'm about to say, between you and Beaver just in that, there's Justin Beaver right there.
Yeah, this is just me and Steve's private chat over here, in case anybody was wondering.
That's kind of funny. We just do this show for our love of Jesus, so don't worry about it.
That's right.
And tools, even task force, man. Task force, get with us. You know what I'm saying?
That's right.
I forget what I was talking about. No, I forget what I was even mentioning.
Having something done.
Oh yeah, running that quarter round, and so I went back to buy the cheapest quarter round in the store. It's like some kind of composite. And I get back to the house and it got wet and just fell apart. I was like, this is horrible. This is like the worst material in the world. And I was like, good grief. Because the first few pieces were wood that I painted and then trimmed out with. So I was like, oh, that looks great. I mean, it's wonderful. I painted it up. I put it in there. And it looks like someone who has skill put it in, because I had to do like 3 of them before I said, I can't do this anymore. Yeah. But I bought the other stuff for the other guy. It snapped in half when I unloaded it out of the truck. It's like, boom. I was like, well, this is subpar quality. Like, oh.
Yeah. Well, even building this bench back here, by the time it was done, or at least done for now, it's like, man, I would not want to be a carpenter. It's just getting frustrated. Oh man.
That's funny, since we are talking about loving Jesus. Man, I want to be a carpenter. He did have a rough road as a carpenter. It ended poorly.
That's right.
Or it didn't really end poorly, but it would have been pretty rough for a man taking that kind of abuse.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, I'm looking at all the stuff I've been reading, and all the stuff I've been reading, I never knew, because I was Bible illiterate for a long time, how many letters Paul could write.
Oh, yeah.
Paul was firing them off left and right. Yep. And they're all about the same. It seems like they're all about the same. Like, make sure you remember what I taught you. I look forward to seeing you again. And it's like all the same advice. A lot of it's the same. There's little differences with each one. But it's funny because a lot of it's like, all right, don't be messing around sexually. And that's what, because he's always like, sexual immorality's bad. Love Jesus. It's really nice because you read them over and over again. There's little differences in each one, which is it's really cool to read. And I never knew about it. No, I probably knew about it because I took communion when I was a kid. But it's been lost on me for like 30 years, I guess.
Yeah.
You can do this. This is Colossians and Philippians, all sorts of stuff.
Where have you been
at? Reading?
Yeah.
I just got done reading 1 Thessalonians.
Okay.
So I'm going to the second one, which they're pretty short, it looks like, and then I'll be getting to first, and I think there's 2 Timothys. I'm not sure. I gotta look. Yeah, 2 Timothys.
Yeah, 1st and 2nd Timothy.
That's where I'll be after that. So I've been reading nonstop letters that Paul wrote to the churches that he visited this whole time. And I wanted to sit here and I wanted to find like one good verse, because when I see a good verse, I'll like put little brackets beside it or something, so I can reread it and inspire myself. Hey, here goes one for you. This is from Colossians. You know what? And I saw this and I read through here, and John HVAC, Jon HVAC.
Yeah.
So he put something at the end of all his videos, and it's a a verse from Colossians, and I got to it. I was like, hey, this is John's verse right here, and it's whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men, and that's at the end of every single one of his videos. I said, well, that's pretty cool. I sat there, guys. I looked on my phone. It's like, do I have his number? It's like, and I did. I shot him a text. I took a picture where I was at. I said, John, I was thinking about you, man.
Right.
But it's good. It's a good idea to do that. Now, I feel like because my wife was upset with me when I came back in today because I've been spending so much time working in that building, and I started thinking about it. So was some of my efforts misplaced by doing so much at one time and kind of forgetting about everything else? And I think she might have a point, which I'm going to have to concede after we're done here.
Mm-hmm.
But I felt kind of bad once I thought about it. Yeah. But it's probably the case.
Yeah.
So what are you up to, man? Because I can keep reading these things, and I'll be happy to, but I'm not going to monopolize. You know what I'm saying?
Not a whole lot. Just been fairly busy at work. Obviously the past few days of coming home and checking on Anna and getting her medicine, getting her food, whatever. Trying to keep up with the kids while she's been down for the count. So,
yeah, that's tough.
I was happy to see her get to feeling better today. She was actually up before me this morning. I was still laying in the bed at 8:00, and she was up, already dressed, and bugging me to get out of the bed. And I'm like, "What are you in such a hurry to get up and do?" And she's like, "I've been in the bed for 3 or 4 days. I am ready to get out of this bed." And she just started cleaning the house.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
Well, you go, Anna. That's awesome. Well, I'm glad she feels better. I didn't know she felt bad.
Yeah. I haven't been sick. I haven't gotten anything, so knock on wood, but
Well, if it's been several days and she got it, if it was actually corona, I figured you would already had it by now.
You would think so.
And the kids, they seem to do pretty well against not getting it at all. The younger kids do.
Yeah. My 11-year-old, she's not feeling great, but I don't think it's related. I think hers is maybe a stomach bug or something. I don't know. I could be wrong. Maybe she's got it too.
Yeah, maybe it's just mild or something too, because a lot of the kids, they have it and it's really mild.
Yeah.
You think it's like a cold or something. It's confusing because you could have it, you don't count it as that. You don't even get tested because it don't feel that bad.
Mm-hmm.
And another person's at death's door when they get it, so it's hard to tell.
Yeah.
Something that made me think of you the other day. I was asking myself questions, maybe sort of like how would I defend some of the beliefs that I've read about. And I was thinking about the timeline of the Bible, and I remember you mentioned to me something about dinosaurs and the Bible. Do you recall us having that conversation?
Yeah, I think so.
You had suggested a video, which I don't remember if I watched it or not, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
But that was several months ago, I want to say. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So I started to kind of wonder about that myself. So I started reading about it. I said, because if it turns out the earth is billions of years old, then that kind of contradicts the Bible. So there's got to be a reason why people think it's billions of years old, or else we're just wrong. So it's one of those two things, right?
Well, I just think our scale is off. Where do they get that it's millions of years old? Because of whatever fossils and this and that and different data that they've gathered over the years. But I don't know how you determine. I don't know how, if you dig up a fossil, you have ways of saying this is 35 million years old. How do you know that? I don't know how you get that scale to where you understand how old something is, especially when you're talking about millions of years.
Well, I did some reading after I kind of posed this question to myself, because I was like, well, what's the deal? And there's lots of places that I found online that have a lot of good information. One of the guys that I follow, due to Joe Shear, I don't think he's here. I haven't seen him in the chat. But Joe Shear, he turned me on to Phil Robertson's podcast originally, and he turned me on to a guy named Matt Slick, who does Facebook Lives. about apologetics or defending Christianity and asking questions about it. So I followed both of them. And there's another website that I stumbled onto called Answers in Genesis, which was really good. And, Tony's over there in the chat saying carbon dating. And that was one of the things they used to date these fossils. But it turns out once you read about it, there's a whole lot of issues with carbon dating. So I was like, well, I'm sitting there, I'm relieved because I said, well, I wanted to work out where it proves the Bible is true, thinking that I had to prove the Bible was true. That sounds like a ridiculous statement. Right. But I was reading about it, and evidently there's these variants of carbon. There's like C14 and C12, and they compare the two readings to see how old something is. Now get this right here, and I'm not going to talk too much about it because, frankly, it was really complicated, and I don't want to get it wrong. So if anyone wants to fact check that, just wait a couple days and do it. So you compare how much C12 to how much C14 there is, and there's like, I don't know if it said 1,000,000 times, billion times, or trillion. I cannot remember, but it's like there's a trillion of one to the other. So the ratio is really big. It's like There's a lot of one and very little of the other one. But there was two issues with that. And there's one issue they didn't mention, which I kind of wondered about. I said, if the ratio is that big, wouldn't it be really easy to screw that up? What if you're like, that instead of one, you had two there, and it completely screws up the whole thing? But they were talking about a few different things that could be wrong with that, including how if there was a great flood at some point, which lots of people say there was a great flood at some point, it would have screwed up the carbon deposit. And evidently, whenever this carbon gets made in the upper atmosphere, it's because of these cosmic radiation or cosmic waves. And they're assuming that there's always been the same amount of this stuff going back thousands of years, which a lot of people say that's incorrect. So there was a lot of things saying that was really screwed up stuff. So I put the question on Facebook, just out there nowhere, just put it up on our profile. Boy, there are people from left to right talking about it, man. It was really interesting.
Yeah. I just think it boils down to it's, at some point it's somebody's theory as to how you may measure something. But I'm sure there's, which I'm saying this, but I have no proof to back this up. I'm going to say that there's a lot flawed with the way that they date the things, and they don't have a better scale to go off of, so that's what they use. So,
I think that's right. I think it's just, and for some reason, I think people think that science is infallible for some reason, even though science has been fallible pretty much the entire time it's been around, which is part of the process. They're figuring stuff out. They're coming up with a plan to figure something out, and first it kind of starts off screwed up. Sometimes it don't get fixed for a long time. The Earth was flat for a long time. How many planets were there for a long time? Planets go back to not being planets after a while. So I think there's a lot screwed up about it. But I'm going to tell you, whenever I got done reading this, kind of studying it a little bit more, and then kind of learning more and, reading along here, I haven't got to the Old Testament yet, going back around again. But I look forward to it now because it's going to be interesting to read it now that I've read that. I went in there and I work out a couple times a day so I can defat myself. And I was in there doing that, and I just had this great feeling come over me of a peace. And just kind of realizing that if our scale is 6,000 years or 8,000 years compared to billions of years, it's much more an intimate time scale now. That means the entire Earth's existed for 6,000 years. You're not lost in this huge chronology of events that expanded way beyond you could understand. It becomes, I don't know, quaint is the right word. It was comforting. And I don't know where that feeling comes from. I like to think the feeling comes from God. I really do like to think that. So that's it's just solidified my belief even more so in that moment. So
yeah, I just think that as far as what you're talking about, it's Kent Hovind is who we were talking about, that has the little documentary deal that's like a video series on. You can find it here on YouTube. And it's just basically about dinosaurs in the Bible. Everybody says where is dinosaurs in the Bible? Well, the word dinosaur wasn't even created. I think I forget the date. It was in the 1800s. It was like the early 1800s. Prior to that, they were described as dragons. If you look in you find dragon in the Bible quite a bit. So there's the answer to that. Everybody's looking for dinosaur. The word dinosaur didn't even exist.
Yeah.
the other thing was, well, how do they come to be? Why don't we have animals that huge? Yada yada yada. Well, one of the things that I guess with science, the thing with reptiles or certain types of animals, they never stop growing their entire life. From the time they're born to the time they die, they never stop growing. So, and we know pre-flood things lived for a whole lot longer, right?
Mm-hmm.
How old was Moses? Several hundred years old.
Right.
Okay. So if you take a reptile pre-flood that's living hundreds of years instead of 20 or 30 or 10 or however long reptiles live now, you're going to have a really big lizard if it's 6, 7, 800 years old. So that was one of the things that he discusses in that documentary is, pre-flood, basically.
It's really interesting. I look forward to learning more about it. Maybe I'll finally have to. Maybe I don't know. I'm supposed to watch the documentary you suggested now after all this time. Maybe there's a rhyme and reason to that. Perhaps
it's been so long since I wish I could reference more stuff from it. It's been a couple years since I watched it, but there's a lot of good stuff in there that, if nothing else, it'll make you wonder.
Yeah.
Maybe he's got a point here.
Well, I'm wondering that, that the information that I read seemed pretty good. It's pretty convincing that there are other options than the one option that's presented to us on a daily basis. But I do also think that, well, two things. I do also think that if I went out to the public and told them this theory, I think most people would look at me like I was nuts.
Yep.
Like, no, it's 4 billion years old. How do you know that? They don't know why. They just know that that's what it is.
Well, and I seen a video one time of them talking about the age of the Earth, and they were referencing school books like from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s, 2000s, all the way up. And every like 10 years, the scale it's off by millions and millions of years. Like I don't know the exact dates that they said, but basically, as an example, they were saying like in the 70s, it was 10 million years old. And then if you read a school book in the 80s, it might say it was 35 million years old. And then in the 90s, it was 150 million years old and stuff like that. And it's like, wait a minute, how are we getting these numbers? Because every 10 years we're jumping by 100 million years. So which is it?
Yeah, it's a little confusing.
I think it's just proof that somebody somewhere is it's somebody's best guess is really what it is. Because there's no, I'm sorry, they can talk about this carbon dating and all this different stuff. There's no real proof of how old the Earth is. There's nothing that you can measure, I think, that's going to tell you that. Now, some scientists can look at this and look at DNA and look at this and say, "Oh, well, in my estimation, it's this old." But it's a guess. That's my thought.
No, I agree. I like that. Your thoughts have been received, friend. Yeah, I agree with you. I think. Well, before, if you would ask me when I was a kid, I'd be like, "Yeah, the Earth is 4 billion years old because that's what we learned in school." But you're right. There's just as much proof out. I think actually there's more proof that this is correct. Once you read it, it seems like there's more for here. But I mean, why wouldn't you teach that? What would be the reason of not teaching this instead of 4 billion? That's what I don't get. Unless it's an active effort on behalf of Satan to derail that.
Because they don't want to give credit to that you just held up.
So they want the credit to be men instead of God.
Exactly.
Well, that makes sense too. And is that essentially Satan at work?
Men cannot stand what they don't understand, or that's the biggest problem with people that don't believe in God, right? That's the biggest thing. They can't see him, they don't hear him, so something they don't understand, they just write it off. They have to have evidence or proof for every little thing instead of having faith. That's what it boils down to. They have no faith.
And that's interesting because faith is the big thing. You know, if you had like a videotape of God creating the earth, I mean, that would kind of derail the whole faith, wouldn't it? If you didn't have to have faith. But, you know, I was thinking about what you said just now. Men will invent something to explain something rather than trust the Bible. So, I mean, that's why the Romans had gods, the Egyptians had gods, all these people that are even in the Bible, the Greeks, they all had gods beforehand that were just invented by men and obviously contrived by men. But I compare it to the coming of Jesus Christ and the Lord, and I'm thinking about this, and I'm thinking, you know, who would invent that one? What good? There's no good idea for men to invent that one. And it definitely wasn't a good idea if Jesus was not really the Messiah. He invented a lifetime of suffering only to be brutalized in the most enormous way at his death. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, you got to ask yourself, what makes sense here? And what I'm reading makes sense. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's something to all these different cultures dating back as far as you can think. All of them having some type of god, right? So you got the Egyptians that do. What's the other one with the Thor and Odin and all that?
Like
what
Norse
is
Norse mythology?
Norse mythology. Why all these cultures, all these countries over thousands of years, why do they all have mythology giving credit to some type of god form? Where would that come from? Why is it a god? I guess is what I'm saying. If they're trying to figure out where they come from, you know, why did they think up a god? Why wasn't it they developed from, you know, other animals that they seen or whatever? You know what I'm saying? Why is it that man's over thousands of years, they're always giving credit to a supreme being is what I'm saying. So it makes you think maybe there is. You get what I'm saying? I know
I understand what you're saying. Men believe or want to believe that there is a supreme being or deity.
Right.
They've created many, and I think they create them because they want an explanation for something. So they create the answer to their problem because they don't know where they're coming from, and they don't know what the point is of life. And why are we here? So you have to create something that knows why you're here, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it seems like if I didn't believe that Christ was the way that you have eternal life, I'd be wandering around going, why are we here? I mean, what's the point of even doing this?
I just find it very, I don't know how to describe this. I don't know how to get my point across where it makes sense.
This is my struggle every day, Justin.
It's just funny to me that men from over thousands of years all have in their mind that they come from a supreme being. What is it in the human brain that wants to think that? In other words, is it God speaking to them, letting them know that you do come from something else? You were created.
Oh, man. I know there's
you
something.
What I'm saying now?
I do know what you're saying now. Oh, my gosh. There's something in Romans that talks about this. Basically, and we had this conversation when Joe was on the show. Joe and Steve were with us, and we were having a conversation about how do people that aren't exposed to Christ come to Christ? How do you have salvation if you're in the outlying parts of the world? And there was a section of Romans that talks about part of your conscience, and this is one of Paul's letters, I guess, to the Romans, talking about how your conscience is implanted with a general, I don't know if it's morality.
Knowing that you come from something greater?
It's like, there's something else there. There's a moral standard there that you adhere to, because there's something along the lines, and I got to read it again because I don't want to say it wrong, because after Jesus came, the law of Moses went away because you were qualified by Jesus to go to heaven. You weren't qualified by the law, but it was something along the lines of you adhere to like a standard like the law, even though you have no idea who Christ is. I have to find that again. That's going to bother me now.
Well, I think, and you bring up another good point there, and I think we've talked about this in the past when we were talking about people's morals and their feelings and where all those things come from. Why is it that if okay, if I murder someone, everyone would agree that that is bad? Okay, why is that? Why is it that it is a moral code that that is wrong to do? Why didn't we come about and just say, oh, you can kill whoever you want to willy nilly? It's not a bad thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know in your mind that that is wrong. What tells you that that's wrong? I believe it's God.
I think you're right. And I found what I was looking for.
Good.
And this is Romans 2:14 through 16. Under a subheading of God's judgment and the law. It says, for when the Gentiles or non-Jews, I guess, that's something I actually learned, so I want to display my knowledge there, who do not have the law by nature do what the law requires. So it says, for the Gentiles who do not have the law by nature do what the law requires, they are a law to themselves, even though they do not have the law. So even though they don't know, they're living their lives as if someone who did know. They show that the work of the law is written on their hearts, while their conscience also bears witness, and their conflicting thoughts accuse or even excuse them on a day when, according to my gospel, God judges the secrets of men by Jesus Christ. So that's exactly what we're talking about right there. So their conscience, I know people out there have done something, and they felt like it was wrong. And why do you feel like it's wrong?
Yeah, you feel bad about it immediately. Why?
Yeah, that's exactly the question you're asking about, because it's something that's built in to your being that it's like that was wrong, even if you've never done it before. That was wrong. That was not good. Beyond like a human guilt, where you're going to hurt somebody's feelings or something like that. Just a feeling that what you did was wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, that worked out good. See,
right.
You came up with something. I actually remembered where the stuff was at. This is a good show.
Right. I was trying to find, I was flipping through here earlier, and I was trying to find, you were talking about Paul, and, there's a lot of that, First and Second Corinthians, in that area. And I was reading something yesterday, and I'm trying to find it, and for the life of me, I cannot find it.
All right. What are we looking for?
I'm trying to think.
Corinthians. Oh. I'm waiting in Corinthians for further instruction.
I hear you.
I'll just read something. Curtis is in the chat down there, and he's saying, he's talking about because Satan made himself an angel of light and blinded the eyes of men. There is a passage that the Robertsons were actually talking about on one of their shows, talking about how they were blinded. I don't remember where it comes from. It must have been from Acts, because they're on Acts currently, about how these people were blinded to the Lord.
Mine was, it was Paul talking to the church, and I can't, for the life of me, find it, because I don't want to just spit it off and totally get it wrong. I'm trying to find it here, but I'm also trying to keep from having awkward silence on this. So
hey, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I'm gonna look through. I tell you what, you try to find it, and since I'm looking through 2 Corinthians right now, I'm looking at all the things I highlighted to see if there's anything that was interesting in here, which it's all interesting, but I guess applies to this. I'm just going to read something. Well, it was interesting because I came across a section called Treasure in Jars of Clay, and I was thinking about, I remember that band Jars of Clay. That was a band I never listened to because I was listening to hard rock music at the time. And I'm pretty sure that I probably should have just listened to Jars of Clay. But it says, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that surpassing power belongs to God and not to us. We are afflicted in every way, but not crushed, perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed, always carrying in the body the death of Jesus. Now that's interesting right there, always carrying in your body the death of Jesus, which again, it's like something that's inside of you. It might actually carry some of those reminders of what you should be doing. It says, always carrying in the body the death of Jesus, so that the life of Jesus may also be manifested in our bodies. For we who live are always being given over to death for Jesus' sake, so that the life of Jesus also may be manifested in our mortal flesh. So death is at work in us, but life in you. That's really cool, because I didn't know where I was going to go on that, but it kind of supports what we're saying.
That's right.
That's weird. That's strange, isn't it? It's almost like happens on purpose. Did you find it, or do I need to keep going?
I'm trying.
I got a lot. I got a lot of brackets. I got a lot of brackets, bro. It's all right.
You just keep going. I'm going to find it. I'm determined to find it.
So I'm going to go down to the next one that I highlighted. I'm not even sure what it's going to get into, but we're going to talk about it here. This is going down. And for reference, this is chapter 4 of 2 Corinthians. I was at 7, verse 7 through 12, and now I'm going to go to 16. So we do not lose heart. Though our outer self is wasting away, our inner self is being renewed day by day, which I thought was cool, because I think one of the things a lot of people fear is getting older and being unable to do certain things as humans. I know that's one of my fears. And this is saying that it's almost like an inverse thing where you get older and you decay on the outside, but inside, spiritually, you're getting stronger and stronger, which I thought was really cool. It says, for this light momentary affliction is preparing us all for eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. Basically saying the stuff you can see is going away, but the things you can't see, they're going to be sticking around for all time. And so really, I'm glad to go back through here, actually, because it's been a few weeks since I read this. And I feel like every chapter I go to of every book, if I would have returned back, I would have seen something else that I missed from the previous one. So I look forward to reading through and coming back again.
Yeah. I found what I was looking for.
All right.
So this is part of a devotional book I've been reading daily. And the way this works is, you have different men of faith that each day they've made, a devotional, and it's all in a book that you can, reference every day of the year. So this one was by Bill Crowder. And the title of it was Time to Grow Up. And he's referring to 1 Corinthians chapter 3, 1 through 17. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1 is, brothers and sisters, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly, mere infants in Christ. And so what this Bill Crowder says here, he gives kind of a short story here, and I'll just read it. He says, while browsing through some birthday cards, I found one that made me laugh. It read, you are only young once, but you can be immature forever. There's something kind of inviting about never having to grow up, as any fan of Peter Pan can attest. But we all know that perpetual immaturity is not only inappropriate, but is also unacceptable. For the Christian, we must mature. After we put our faith in Christ, we are not expected to stay spiritual babies. The scriptures challenge us to grow to be more like Christ. When writing to the problem-tainted church at Corinth, I guess is how you pronounce that.
Yeah.
Paul said that their issues were rooted in lack of spiritual development. He said, brothers and sisters, I could not address you as people who live by the Spirit, but as people who are still worldly, mere infants in Christ, again, referring to 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 1. And Bill, he continues on here. How do we grow up? Peter urged. Grow in the grace and knowledge of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, which is 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 18. We do this by meditating on the Word of God and devoting ourselves to prayer. Bill finishes up here and says, now is the time to grow up in our faith. So it made me think, and I think that's a big thing, and I'm guilty of it myself. When people get saved, they're fired up, they're enthusiastic about church and about Jesus and all this stuff. And as time goes on, they don't continue to educate themselves and grow in the scripture. And that's something I'm glad it was in this devotional book, because that's something I want to work on myself, is continuing to grow. Don't think just because you're saved, you got it whooped. There's nothing else to learn. There's nothing else to do. you got to continue to grow.
That was a really, really good one. I like that. I kind of followed along with you. Our Bibles are different. Different words and stuff. You got to kind of work through worldly people of the flesh in my Bible.
It's, I don't know what they in this devotional. I don't know what version, because they've got the scriptures in there, but it doesn't tell you what version of the Bible they're pulling that. Whether it's NIV or New King James version or what it is.
Well, that was a pretty good passage too, because I've heard them reference that, like on the podcast I listen to. They reference it says, it follows up what you said with, I fed you with milk, not solid food, because you were not ready for it. I know they talked about spiritual learning as food on the Robertsons thing, and that was really interesting. And at the end of that passage in verse 4, it says, for someone says, I follow Paul or I follow Apollos instead of following Christ, it got me thinking about, like, you have these pastors on television that are like superstars, and it just kind of makes me think about, is that the same situation as this church is having? How people are following the man instead of the actual Christ?
I think it happens a lot.
Yeah, I think it happens in the little churches too, like the ones around here. You see a guy who's really fired up, and some of them are fired up because of what they're reading. But every now and then I see one, it's almost like celebrity, and it makes me kind of wonder about it. So.
Yeah, I think. Well, you hear that all the time, right? Especially if you're talking to other people that go to other churches and this and that, and you're in a small community where you know who all the pastors are and all this stuff, and you hear people talking in restaurants or whatever, and so and so, boy, he was fired up. He was really, really good this Sunday, or yada yada yada. They're giving credit to the man. Now, don't get me wrong. It's worthy to note that how do I put this? Man, I'm struggling with my words tonight here.
I know what you want to say. I know what you're going to say.
It's good to have a pastor that can break things down for you to understand, and you be able to get something from the message. That's worth note. But at the end of the day, it's not him. It's God.
Right.
That's what you should be fired up about. Not about how great your pastor is. Not saying you don't like your pastor, that he doesn't do a good job. I'm just saying you don't give him the credit for certain things.
Well, 1 Corinthians chapter 3, down the line at verse 11 says, for no one can lay a foundation other than that which is laid, which is Christ Jesus. So, I mean, he's the reason, and thank goodness the pastor is qualified and it's flowing through him into the congregation.
Right.
So, but the pastor isn't creating it. He's just a vehicle for some of that knowledge, maybe.
Yeah.
I think it's a good point.
Lot better explanation than what I gave. Yes.
I know what you mean, man. Sometimes it could be a struggle, man, especially when you're fired up.
When you're trying to portray something and you just cannot come up with the words.
Well, that's what our show is known for. We got great ideas to give you guys. We're trying to get the words that we're reading here into your mind, especially the ones who maybe haven't been exposed to it. But man, sometimes we have roadblocks. So
yeah.
Steve says, speak through me in spite of me. Yeah, because these are all just men. But when you see the attributes of the man being praised instead of what he's saying, I think that might be a red flag. But you might want to, because I hate to say that every preacher that is fired up and doing a good job is narcissistic or arrogant or believing that he's where the power is coming from. I don't think that's true. But there's a few that I've wondered about over the years, because everybody would talk about the preacher instead of the message, and that's what concerns me.
I guess the best way I can put what I was trying to say was, be careful not to put the man up on the pedestal. Yeah. Instead of putting God up there.
Right. I think it's a lot easier to live whenever you don't put anyone on that pedestal, because when you start building up where these people, like your pastors, are greater than you, you might feel like you're cut off from part of the relationship with Christ because they're higher than you. But I don't think that's the case. That's something I actually struggle with, especially when I didn't know anything and I wasn't reading anything, because I always felt like I was an outcast And I felt like, well, I'm never going to have this stuff. I'm an outcast. I don't know anything about it. And it turns out that it's exactly what I should have been doing, was going in there and, listening and reading and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Stop being an outcast. Bless you.
That's right. Thank you.
And if that wasn't a sneeze, just bless you, man. That's what the Christians say when they're mad. Well, bless you.
That's right.
Bless you. Oh, I don't think that was right, but bless you. I'll see you.
What's bad about this is when people listen to listen to it as a podcast later, they don't get to see your facial expression.
Yeah, man, they're priceless. Yeah. I had to drop a photo on social media. No, it's not about me, guys. No. That's just, I can't stop that from happening. It's like Ace Ventura or something. It's part of my DNA.
That's right.
Oh man, there's so many good verses. I know I hate to pick a verse that has no correlation to what we're talking about, but part of me just wants to read every single bracketed one. It's like, isn't that one good? Isn't that one good? Isn't that one good?
Right.
Man, we'll go to Curtis. Has a comment down there. Let's see. I'm glad you're watching this, Curtis. I don't know if you watch him every week, but you definitely commented more. That's cool. The Pharisees and Sadducees during Jesus' time were more worried about show in front of the people. Well, I think that was definitely true. I think the Bible's pretty clear on that.
Yeah.
That's when they were called. What did they call it? Brood of vipers is what Jesus called them.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad.
He says you still see a lot of this today. There's a lot of truth in that.
That's one of the things that we could talk about. That the more I read, the less I think like most of the people that I know do these things. I started reading. I was like, no one around me is doing this stuff. I mean, that's kind of worrisome, though. I mean, living the way, or at least trying to live this way. I see a lot of tempers flare. I see a lot of, I don't know if you're going to call it immaturity, but the sexual immorality is rampant everywhere. Try to avoid that. I mean, look at the television, 24 hours a day. I mean, it's not like it's pornography, all of it, but it's like a mild version of it on every single show at night. Christians typically are made as jokes on all these shows, like far right weirdos a lot of times.
Like you're a cult. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like it's called. Speaking of like the Supreme Court Justice, the lady who just got confirmed. I don't know why I can't remember her name.
Amy Coney Barrett.
Amy Coney Barrett. They were analyzing that Catholic group she was with, and boy, they made it sound like she was down there with David Koresh and the gang at Waco or something. It was like, wow.
Really?
These are just Christians. I'm not familiar with but it's like the largest fraternal organization that Catholics have in the country, is what I heard. So it can't be too far out there.
Yeah, I think there's two views of the church. So one, if you're non-believing, you look at it as, it's a crazy cult and they're crazy, and then none of that stuff is true. That's just what they tell themselves, and yada yada yada. And then when in places where it is acceptable, or someone is speaking about being a Christian and being proud, it's more of, instead of it being a way of life, which is the way it should be, it's more of, like saying you're a part of a book club or something. It's like you call yourself a Christian, but yet you don't do the things you're supposed to do. You don't live in a godly way.
That's exactly right. That's it. I mean, I don't know what to make of all that. I feel like I'm new to this almost now, because I just started doing this again, and I know I'm on the right path. I have no mistake, because the feeling inside of me is that this is correct and to pursue this and keep going. But it also is worrisome, because the more I read, the more I realize that more people are detached from this than I ever knew. And it's scary to me. And I was looking at it because I know I read the book of Matthew for a while before I switched to John on the request of the Robertson gang and my mother-in-law. Yeah. Actually, my mother-in-law said, read John first. John's going to be a good one to start with. So, and I remember this. This is a passage in Matthew, part of, as you see, it's red letter extravaganza. So all of this is Christ talking, and it's the golden rule and the narrow gate. And I think I quoted this before, but it's Chapter 7 of Matthew, verse 13. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter it are many. But the gate is narrow and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. And that's becoming truer and truer the farther I go. That's what's
Mm-hmm.
scary to me. And I think that's why what we're doing here, even though I know there's like 12 or 13 people that watch this when we're doing our Bible study every week. But,
Yeah.
if we can get one more person through the gate, I mean, isn't that worth it? No?
Right. It absolutely is. I guess what I was trying to get across was I just get frustrated with so-called Christians today, and by no means am I judging anybody, because we know I'm not perfect. But I have a problem with, like, for example, and not to get on politics or current leadership or nothing like that, but at some point during the I'm pretty sure it was during the vice presidential debate, and something come up about religion, and I remember Kamala Harris saying that me and Joe are people of faith as well. I'm sure it had something to do with Mike Pence referring to being a Christian and this and that. And she said, me and Joe are people of faith also. And I'm thinking, that's the best way you can describe yourself, really? What a vague answer. What a tiptoe around faith answer. We're people of faith. What does that mean?
And it's just, I think that's a broad term that people use just to signify, and I don't know if this is why they said it, but I think when I hear that, it's like a generic term that people use to curry favor with people that are of faith.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way, that faith in what we're talking about.
Yeah, it just irritated me when I heard that. I'm like, people of faith. Okay, what's wrong with saying I'm a practicing Christian and I believe this, and this? Because if you're going to stand up there and say we're people of faith too, then why aren't you scared to say the rest of it?
I think I have the answer now that I thought about that. People of faith is the widest possible term to say you're devoted to some religious something. Mm-hmm. So people of faith is a wide term. And what do these people want? Lots of voters.
But are you truly devoted to your supposed faith? Are you truly devoted if you won't even emphasize what your faith is?
I think that's sort of the point. It's so vague that people will just kind of draw the conclusion that they want to draw. Like, oh, these people are people of faith, just like me. Even though the faith that particular person who's watching feels, that's not what they're talking about. They're just trying to make some connection with as many people as possible and be as vague as possible because, people fill in the blanks for themselves. Like, if I liked Biden and Harris and they said, we're people of faith, I said, okay, cool, I'm a person of faith too. And I go ahead and draw all the conclusions that, they must mean Christianity. They must mean that Jesus is their Savior. That's what they must be talking about because that's people of faith. When they're just saying something that's just vague. So the most people will, I don't know, respect them for it. I don't know. I don't know if that's why they said it. That's what I hear.
My point is I don't feel like you should tap dance around anything, to please a certain audience or whatever. I'm not going to change who I am or what I believe based on who I'm talking to. If you like me, you like me. If you don't, you don't. And that's probably, that's a lot of what's wrong with politics is it's a bunch of fake people just saying whatever they have to say to try to get votes. And I feel like they've lost track of who they are and their morals altogether.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely true. And that's very sad. And the sad other fact is that will work on a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why they keep getting elected and they keep getting reelected because there's a whole bunch of people buying into whatever someone says.
Yeah.
And that's kind of sad.
I seen a post on social media that, to staying on politics for a second, I guess this was a guy that worked on the pipeline or whatever. And he put a post on social media and said, I can't believe this. Joe Biden's, not been in office, but X amount of time or whatever. And here I am already unemployed. If I'd have known this, I'd have voted for Trump. And somebody got on there and commented and said, where have you been? He said it plain as day on TV that this is what he was going to do. And the guy's response was, well, politicians say a lot of things. I didn't think he would actually do it, though.
And he's got a point. A lot of times they don't follow through with their stuff. But man, it was executive order extravaganza.
Yeah, I seen something about, I don't remember the exact number, but it said they started from George Bush Jr. Till now, and they were talking about the executive order, because every president does that whenever they come into office, right? Their first week, the first couple of days, they're signing executive orders, blah blah blah. And that's kind of like the new fad for presidents. They put in place certain executive orders. So I think George Bush was, and somebody will fact check me on this, but it was like 4 in the first week. Obama was 4 or 5 in the first week. Trump was 3 or 4 in the first week, and then Biden was like 17 in the first week, or 17 in the first 4 days. That's what it was. 17 in the first 4 days. I'm like, holy crap!
I did hear something where he had more than everybody else combined.
Yeah,
in a certain amount of time, like you're saying. So I don't know. I mean, that's. I have speaking of having little faith in our political establishment, I have very little faith. I know that we should pray for them, but I'm really curious how this is going to come out, because I don't. My opinion of Biden is that he's just along for the ride at this point. Really, there's other forces at work on him, is what I believe.
Yeah.
So I don't know where this goes from here. Well, it goes far left, like to the squad and to AOC and that sort of far left stuff, or it moderates a little bit. I don't know, but with so many executive orders, you got to wonder, because that means he wants to circumvent the legislative process.
And what I find funny, and maybe I'm totally off on this, maybe I'm just making assumptions, but you would think somebody as old as Joe Biden, right? How old is he? What is he?
78, I do believe.
78. Okay. So growing up, I'm sure he come up in a community in a time where there were lots of Christian people. It was a lot different way of life. There was, there was a lot more of the nuclear family. All these things that we talk about holding on to dearly, like me and you talk about. Now you fast forward, he's 78 years old, and a lot of the things he puts in place, it's like he's lost who he is or where he come from. You know what I mean? Like, I guess my thing is I guess I make assumptions that somebody that old is going to have an old school way of thinking of stuff, leave people's rights alone, a very godly thought process or freedom of religion process. Right. And it just doesn't seem to be that way. So I think they just lose track of who they are over the years, especially when they're lifelong politicians.
I still can't get over that he was elected. part of that just blows my mind. It's not that Trump lost. It's like that guy beat him. That's what blows my mind. Because Biden is such I've been here forever,
Yeah, think about this. Okay, you got a guy that has got on stage and said a lot of I'm going to raise your taxes. I'm going to come after guns. I'm going to shut down thousands of jobs in fossil fuels to start focusing on clean energy, whatever the crap that means. I guess, solar and things of that nature. But so he's got some topics there that are pretty out there that a lot of people aren't going to agree with. Okay. The second thing is he clearly has something going on with old age. I'm not going to say he has dementia or nothing like that. I feel like he's super forgetful. I mean, the guy can barely finish a sentence, right, without stumbling over himself. He contradicts what he says all the time. He can't remember what he did last week. When it comes to campaigning during all this dude was hiding out. He didn't campaign whatsoever, hardly at all. Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're going to tell me that a guy that is focusing on controversial topics is pretty radical in some of the ways he thinks. He's older, and there's clearly some stuff going on there. And you're going to tell me that he got the most votes of all time?
By far.
I don't believe it. I just don't believe it.
It seems weird.
It blows my mind. It really does.
Yeah. Well, there's a bunch of blown minds in this area. Well, this goes right back to John HVAC. Whatever you do, work heartily. It's for the Lord and not for men. Because if you start thinking about politics and what men say, man, I'm not going with that.
Yeah.
I'm not going down that road. I'd rather be thought of like a psycho or like a weirdo or a cult member and follow Christ and follow this bunch.
Yeah.
I wish them the best. We can pray for them, but I don't know where we go in the next 4 years. It'll be strange. Hopefully not too many things, or as far as rights, get augmented or stripped away. Because there was a lot of Trump voters, too. I'm not saying Trump was right, but there's going to be a lot of people that are on a more conservative side that will have something to say about that.
Yeah.
And not the weirdo capitals say about it. I mean, actual do things the right way.
Yeah, because even if we say the voting was accurate or whatever, what did they say Trump got? Was it 76 million?
Yeah.
Is that what it was?
I don't know.
74 or 76 million?
It was 70 something. I know that.
Yeah. So you got a pretty, even if the vote is correct, you have a pretty divided country right now. And I'm going to go out on a limb and say that three quarters of it is probably more. No, that's not the best way to put that. I'm going to say the majority of Joe Biden's, votes come from places like California and New York and places like that. Philadelphia.
Where's that place in Wisconsin? There's so many weird things in this election. I was trying to find, because Kurt's down there talking about how the thrones on earth are God's footstools. It said everyone that was put in office by God, and there was a thing in Romans about that too, where it talked about the governments are put in place. We talked about that. They're put in place by the Lord, and that's definitely true. They put them in place. But there's one other thing I wanted to read for you, because we were talking, kind of going back to people knowing that there's something out there, having a moral standard, even though they haven't been exposed to it. And there's another part of Romans. It's chapter 1, verse 20. It says, "For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since creation of the world." So that kind of puts it in that it's in everybody's mind somewhere. So
yeah,
that was pretty cool. That's probably a better example than the other one, actually.
Yeah.
But they're both on the same page, oddly enough. I guess I couldn't see both of them. Well, I'm all out of verses. I know we're going past an hour now.
It's about that time.
It is about that time because, like you said, you're tired and I'm tired too.
I am tired. I don't know why. It's not like I've done a whole lot.
And building your shelf, man.
I guess, but man, if that's what wore me out, and I didn't even do that today. I did that yesterday.
You're still tired from building your shelf yesterday, I guess.
I guess.
You need to get healthy. You're tired from a shelf you built yesterday.
Oh man, age is creeping up. I'm gonna have to start getting healthy.
Hey, dude, that's what I said to myself. I'm not healthy by any means, but I was up to 278 pounds, and I was looking a little bloated. So I started doing exercise and stuff, and as of this week, I'm 245. So I've come down 33 pounds from that peak, which was about a year ago, probably, or a little bit more. So, but I feel a ton better. I mean, I feel like night and day different. I'm hoping to get down to 220, 215. That'd be kind of nice.
I just got to get more active. Coming out of the field has really been, I think the majority of it is, I'm not lifting anything heavy. I'm not, running around as a service tech, running several calls a day and having to climb up in attics and do all that stuff. I mean, I don't do any of that stuff anymore. So
yeah,
I'm not really working my body out, I guess.
I walk in place. It sounds stupid and it looks stupid.
I gotta.
This number right here. No, and I'm not lying to you, dude. I'm sitting in front of the mirror. I'm like, Alexa, play another song. Don't turn on. Okay, I look down there at the other one and say, don't start talking. And I'm sitting there going, and I look like an idiot. But you know what? it's one of the reasons why I get all these steps during the day, and it works though. It really works. It looks so stupid, but I mean, it looks stupid privately though. At least. I'll put a video on social media. This will be, I'm sitting there like sawing wood.
Where do you do this at?
In the master bathroom.
Oh,
I'll march around the whole house. If I want to watch a TV show, I'll be right in front of the TV.
Have you ever been walking in place in your master bathroom and Melissa just walk in and be like, "What are you doing?"
Like the first few times, because I was a little bit self-conscious because I'm about to do something that's gonna make me look like an idiot, and I'm aware of that. So, but I want to be healthy, so I'm gonna do it anyway. And so I'm sitting in there doing it, and then Melissa walks in, and you just get like a look, like, for real, you're walking in place. So, but I found that if you do go outside and work in the yard and stuff, that does kind of do it for you. If you like say, because I used to like have a guy cutting my grass every couple of weeks, especially when I was in the field. So now I'm gonna go out there and cut the grass. And it's actually it's a pretty good exercise because you're paying somebody for a reason, because it sucks because it's 95 degrees and you're cutting the grass.
Yeah.
But I just do more stuff like that because before I didn't realize how sedentary I was until I started moving around, because now I have a goal. I have to hit 15,000 steps a day, no matter what.
I think that's totally off topic, but that's a pretty common thing in the heat and air world, ain't it? That you have somebody else mow your grass because you're so busy running calls like on the weekend and during the week that you just don't have time. And the time that you do have is precious to do whatever you want to do or spend time with your family. And the last thing you want to do is cut grass, especially if you have a huge yard.
Oh yeah, dude, you go out there. My property is 1 acre, so it's not very big, and a lot of it's trees. So there's a little bit in the back, and there's a big chunk in the front. And then I'll be sitting up in the attic, just picture people on the podcast. I'm making weird faces. I'm going, oh man, I can't wait to get home and cut my grass. I can't wait to get out there at 5:30. It's 93 degrees and humidity 69%. I can't wait to get out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking forward to it so much.
Yeah. So I'm going to die today. That's what's going to happen. I'm going to die.
Or even if you do have intentions of going home and cutting grass, it's like you work hard all day, especially if you're in attics and it's in the middle of summertime and all that. And then you get home and you walk in the door and you take your boots off, or maybe you don't take your boots off, but you sit down and it's all over.
Yeah.
You're not getting back up.
Yeah. I'll come inside and I'll sit down, and if it's about 10 minutes or more, the locking up period starts. Oh, I want to head back outside. Nope. That's a negative.
Nope.
See you tomorrow, grass. And the grass keeps on growing.
Mm-hmm.
And then it looks like looks kind of rough in the yard if that happens a few days in a row, especially here, or it rains and the grass doubles in height.
Those were the days, Zach. Those were the days.
It's all behind me now. I'm glad it's behind me. I'm enjoying the new chapter of my life, but there was some activity lost there. Definitely less activity if you're not like setting equipment or something like that.
Man, could you imagine at your age right now? I know, especially for me, if you had to go back to being a tech for somebody else right now, go back to running, we'll just say 6 or 8 calls a day. I would be so slow. Like, I would be that guy that the dispatcher would be calling me going, "You about done? What are you doing? What are you talking about? I just got in the attic. I'm going to be a minute."
I'm still troubleshooting. Yeah. You got there half an hour ago. Well, I talked to the customer. I mean, I had the customer relations.
That's right. I build value with the customer. He's pretty talkative.
Yeah, you got to start talking that marketing language. I was establishing value.
That's right. I was building value with the customer. Don't rush me.
What? This is the euphemisms of HVAC. I wasn't in there just talking about a stupid sports trophy. I was building value. Come on. I just love it. We have our fair share of BS and HVAC too.
That's right.
Yeah. Just fix the thing properly. They'll probably dislike you for that. You don't have to say great sports trophy, Bob. Or whatever.
That's right.
Nice lawnmower. How many horses is she?
Yeah. I noticed on your tag walking up your driveway that you're a veteran. What branch did you serve it at?
And then they'll say a branch, which is contrary to your branch. I was. Did you have that? Did you have like Marines? You know, did you have that?
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
they'll say Marine. So I was Army.
Okay,
Then
show
y'all
me
won't.
where the attic is.
Yeah, then no one will talk for the rest of the time.
Where the attic access is. This conversation's over.
You know, you have like stereotypes from the 4 different service. You know, the Army guy comes in or the Marine guy comes in. So I was in the Air Force, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. Because I might as well have been in the Coast Guard. And I'm not saying anything. I'm just saying what I hear when people talk. That's all.
Yeah, I think probably Army and Marines can probably relate with each other more than what, say, Army and Air Force or Army and Navy can. It's just, I feel like it's 2 different worlds.
Yeah. Yeah. I always got the impression that whenever there is an issue, that either the Marines or the Army are usually the first ones there, at least in like a close confined issue, like you're face to face with some sort of adversary. I feel like those are the 2 groups that are in that area.
Yeah. If you take the Navy SEALs out of the picture,
Which is, I guess, just a small group of people, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got your SEAL teams, and not taking anything away from them.
Don't tick off the SEAL teams by saying they're in the group. No, you guys are cool, okay? It's like, yeah, right. Yeah, they're plotting. All right.
Anyhow.
Yeah, let's wrap this thing up because bedtime is quickly approaching. Oh, yeah, Curtis says come work with him and he'll get you back in shape. I'm going to go ahead and shoot that offer down.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and decline, Curtis, but thanks for the offer.
Oh, my gosh. I'm going to go ahead and work heartily for God instead of men. And you in particular, right. Curtis. You're the man they're talking about. All right, Justin, you gonna do your thing, man? I can hit a button. I'll hit a button.
Guys, we appreciate you being here, all 13 of you.
That's a lot.
I know, right?
We're changing lives.
Don't forget, if you got any questions or you got any topic ideas, you can shoot us an email, menwithissuespodcast@gmail.com. This will be a podcast in the next 2 or 3 days whenever Zach gets it uploaded over there, so look for that. Till next week, y'all have a good one.